أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Reflections on the Risale-i Nur by Bediuzzaman Said Nursi podcast series. This is Mustafa Tuna. You can listen to the episodes of this series wherever you get your podcasts, and please subscribe, or on the YouTube channel Reflections RN, and again, please subscribe. Alternatively, you can access both the audio and video versions of these recordings at the website www.reflections-rn.org. All of the episodes of this podcast are organized on this website, and to access today's session, inshallah, you can go to podcasts, then words, then the 21st word. So as it also indicates, inshallah, we will continue reading the 21st word. This treatise has two stations. We already covered the first one, and the second one is about obsessive thoughts or satanic whisperings, waswasa. These are thoughts that come to us without our volition and usually cast doubt in our hearts. It can be in other ways too, but usually cast doubt in our hearts about something. And an especially important and dangerous version of these doubts or these whisperings is when Satan casts doubt in our hearts about the validity or acceptability of our worship. It happens a lot in prayer. Sometimes we genuinely forget what we were doing in prayer. Say we forget whether we were in the first rak'ah or the second rak'ah or the third rak'ah or the fourth rak'ah, whether we recited a certain verse that we should be reciting or not. Sometimes this is genuine, and we need to take care of it. If we really cannot remember, we might even have to redo our prayer, but oftentimes there are ways to resolve the problems that arise from this in the prayer. So there is a genuine version of these issues that come up in prayer, but then there are these whisperings that come from Satan and that really put unnecessary doubt in our hearts, and if we pay attention to them, they may turn our prayer or other forms of worship or other forms of good that we do into a tremendous burden, a burden that we cannot bear. And at the point where we cannot bear it, we may start to move away from that form of worship. Now, the worship that is obligated, the good that is obligated and recommended and praised by God and by the Prophet ﷺ and so on and so forth, these are not heavy. The burden that they put on us is not something that we cannot carry. But obsessive thoughts, these satanic whisperings, make it heavy. So it is not the worship that's heavy, it is the whispering, it is the obsessive thought that makes it heavy for us. So it's a dangerous thing. We may end up decreasing our worship. And the solution to this is to know how this whole thing works. What are these obsessive thoughts? To learn to recognize them when they come, to learn to differentiate between different thoughts that come to our heart and mind, and when it is from Satan, to say, I know you. You are the accursed Satan. I'm not talking to you. Just go away. right? If it is from the lower soul, which is usually insistent, it doesn't just go away, it keeps insisting and insisting, right? It keeps bugging you. Then we learn to say, I know you are my lower soul, and I know what you deserve, right? So this treatise gives us a lot of clues about understanding what obsessive thoughts, satanic whisperings are, and recognizing them when they come, and also dealing with them when they come. The overall takeaway from this whole treatise is that when obsessive thoughts come, don't pay attention to them. If you pay attention to them, they will get you. It's like, as we mentioned in the last episode, it's like receiving those spam calls. They call you. If you pick up the phone and start talking to this person on the other end of the line, they'll get you at some point. If not the first spam call, the second one. If not the second one, the third one. If not the third one, the fourth one. At some point, they'll get you. So the best thing is do not pick up the phone, right? Do not pay attention to these obsessive thoughts. So that said, let's continue reading the treatise. Ustad Nursi explains this matter in several aspects. We covered the first one in the previous episode, and inshallah in this one we will read, reflect upon the second one, and hopefully the third one too. So Bismillah. 21st word, second station, second aspect. Budur ki manalar kalpten çıktıkları vakit suretlerden çıplak olarak hayale girerler. Oradan suretleri giyerler. Hayal ise her vakit bir sebep tahtında bir nevi suretleri nesçeder. Ehemmiyet verdiği şeyin suretlerini yol üstünde bırakır. Hangi mana geçse ya ona giydirir, ya takar, ya bulaştırır, ya perde eder. Eğer manalar münezzeh ve temiz iseler, suretler mülevves ve rezil ise giymek yoktur. Fakat temas var. Vesveseli adam teması telebbüsle iltibas eder, eyvah der, kalbim ne kadar bozulmuş. Bu sefillik, bu hisseti nefs beni matrud eder. Şeytan onun şu damarından çok istifade eder. It is this that when meanings leave the heart, they enter imagination naked without imagery, and there they clothe in images. So meanings come to the heart first. The heart has these connection points, as we mentioned before, or these companions, fellow travelers that move with it, that serve as connection points or receivers for various kinds of thoughts coming to the heart. And those thoughts can be satanic, from Satan or its accomplices, or angelic, or divine, right? So they come to the heart. The thing is, when meanings appear in the heart, they are devoid of form, figure. They are pure meaning. We have difficulty comprehending this because it is something that the heart does, but our comprehension is based on two main faculties, which are the intellect and the imagination. So in order to process those meanings, if our heart is not really advanced and it's not really cultivated and can function on its own, if it has not moved above and beyond materiality and our customs in engaging the world, right? Then we are dependent on these images and forms and language. So when meanings come to the heart, they are pure meaning, but then they leave the heart, right? And they enter imagination. When they enter imagination, they don't have any imagery, right? It is the imagination that attaches imagery to those naked meanings. So the Ustad Nursi is using a simile here, a metaphor here, and he is saying that he is thinking of meanings as, say, a person who is putting on clothes, right? So the meaning comes out of the heart and goes into imagination, and there imagination attaches meanings to it as though it is clothing it in a certain outfit. As for imagination, so now we need to understand the nature of imagination. It always weaves some types of imagery under the influence of this or that cause. So imagination, it works non-stop as long as you have your consciousness, or sometimes it might get involved in dreams too. As long as you have your consciousness, however, imagination is working. There is always some imagery in your faculty of imagination. These may be random images. These may be images related to the things that you see. And the random images are also products of the images that you see. Therefore, we need to be very careful about what we record there and what we keep on the more accessible shelves of our imagination, because it constantly weaves some types of imagery, in the sense that if you either have these images ready and brings them out, or he combines them, he mixes them up, he weaves them, as in how human beings have come up with the idea of a unicorn, right? What is it? A horse with a horn, right? Now, how did we come up with this idea? Well, we saw the horse in the world out there, and we saw a horn in the world out there. In our imagination, we put them together and came up with the idea of a unicorn, right? So the imagination is always weaving some types of imagery. It is always occupied with some image. It leaves on the way the images of things to which it gives importance. Now, there are things that are more vivid in our imagination. There are things that have a stronger impress on our imagination. There are things that we keep on the more accessible, let's say, eye level shelves. And there are things that are at the bottom shelf that we rarely reach out to and take out. There are, or if you think of it as a cabinet, there are, cabinet sections, drawers that have doors, or drawers that are in the cabinet that need to be pulled out, right? So what is pulled out? Which door is open? Which shelf we place things on is very important, right? So there is some level of evolution in there. But even when we consciously try to keep our imagination clean, there are certain things that we cannot avoid as human beings, and especially in this day and age where imagery, right, pictures and motion pictures, moving and still pictures are everywhere surrounding us, or when we go out in the street, it is very likely to be exposed to things that we would not want to be exposed to in order to keep our imagination clean, right? So especially in an environment like this, the way that we live in this modern day and age, without our volition, the imagination will pick up certain things. Even in the past, even in places where you don't have to worry about this level of contamination of imagery, right? The imagination will involuntarily pick up certain things that may not be suitable for meanings that we associate with holy, sacred matters, right? But regardless, what we are trying to understand at this point is that the imagination lives on the way the images of things to which it gives importance. Whatever meaning passes through it. Now, the imagination is there, filled with images. Sometimes it's very crowded too, right? Think of it as a room filled with outfits, and one has to enter from one end and exit from the other end, and you don't have a choice. You have to put on one of the clothes that are in the room, right? They are going to dress you up in one of the outfits, and then you will exit from the other end. And sometimes you don't have a choice which outfit comes on your way first. Whatever meaning passes through it, it either clothes it, attaches to it, taints it, or veils it. So It either clothes that meaning in one of the images it has, or it attaches that meaning to it, right? Or it may even be not an outfit, but something that's more contaminant and taints it, or it may completely veil it. That image may completely veil the meaning. If the meanings are pure and clean, yet the images are polluted and despicable, so what happens then? Right? A beautiful meaning came to your heart. You are in the prayer. You said Subhanallah. Right? Your heart is saying Subhanallah. Glory be to God. But then, right, this meaning is going to exit the heart and go through the imagination. And the image there that happens to be there at that moment is polluted and despicable. Now, in this case, there is contact, but no clothing. Right? So maybe I should fix the example I use. You enter the room, you don't have to put something on, but you have to touch something, right? You cannot go through it without touching something, right? So there is contact, but no clothing. The person with obsessive thoughts confuses contact with clothing and says, "Woe to me! How corrupted has my heart become? This lowliness and vileness will make me expelled from God's presence." The way Adam alayhi salam was and Eve Hawa alayhi salam were expelled from heaven, or Satan was expelled from the presence of God, and of course Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayhi salam did tawbah, repented, and we now as their children have the promise that if we do good deeds and if we go back to God with a sound heart, we will enter his presence again. We will enter Jannah, the heaven, paradise again. But Satan is cast out for good, right? So regardless, the person, his heart is beautiful, pure, and pure, beautiful meaning comes to the heart. It has to go through imagery. As it goes through imagery, it touches upon dirty, vile images, right? But remember, we said we need to understand the quiddity of obsessive thoughts. We need to understand how it works, right? So how it works is that in this case, the meaning is clean, the image is dirty, there is contact, but no clothing. However, if the person does not recognize what this actually is about, he or she may think that this was clothing, the meaning is now all wrapped up in dirty imagery, right? And panics and says, "Woe to me, how corrupted has my heart become? This lowliness and violence will make me expelled." And Satan takes advantage of this vein of this person's a lot. Right? So this is one of the ways Satan entraps us and misleads us. So we want to understand that there is contact but not clothing, and as long as there is no clothing, we are fine. We should not panic and think that, wow, this is clothing, and give an opportunity to Satan to get to us. So what is the solution? Şu yaranın merhemi şudur. Dinle ey biçare. Nasıl ki senin namazın edebi nezihanesinin vesilesi olan zahiri taharete, batnının batınındaki necaset ona tesir etmez ve bozmaz. Öyle de maani-i mukaddesenin sureti mülevveseye mücavereti zarar etmez. Mesela sen ayat-ı ilahiyeyi tefekkür ediyorsun, birden bir maraz ya bir iştiha ya bevl gibi bir emri müheyyic şiddetle senin hissine dokunuyor. Elbette senin hayalin devai illet ve kazai hacetin levazımatını görecek, bakacak, onlara münasip süfli suretleri nescedecek ve gelen manalar ortalarından geçecekler. Geçeceklere ne beis vardır, ne tellevüs var ve ne zarar var ve ne hatar var. Yalnız hatar ise hasr-ı nazardır, zannı zarardır. The salve for this wound is this. Listen, oh, the helpless one. Now, the person who, if Satan gets to the person, if the person opens the door and Satan comes in, or picks up the phone and Satan starts to talk with the person, one may feel very helpless. One may feel like, oh, my heart is so dirty, I will never get there, right? So one may feel helpless. But this is a misconception, misunderstanding, right? In the way that the filth in your abdomen does not affect and ruin the external purity, that is the means for the pure etiquette of your prayer. Likewise, the proximity of sacred meanings to polluted images does not cause harm. I mean, isn't that the case? We always have some impurity in our bodies, but as long as we clean the outside of our body, we are in a state of material and ritual. And if we clean the outside of our body and also take ablution or ghusl, right, take a shower or take ablution, we are in a state of both external material and ritual purity. And that's a requirement of prayer. We need to be in a state of purity in order to pray or say recite the Qur'an from the Mus'haf, from a book. Right? We need that purity, and whether there is impurity inside our bodies, like in some legal schools, in some madhahib, blood is impure, right? Now, if blood is impure, blood is coursing through our entire body. Does that mean that we are impure, we cannot pray, right? No, we can pray because blood is impure if it is outside the body. If it's inside the body, that's no problem, right? So, similar to this, the proximity of sacred meanings to polluted images does not cause harm, right? We said the meaning has to go through that room of images and it will touch things, right? There is contact, there is proximity, but the proximity of sacred meanings to polluted images does not cause harm. For example, say you are contemplating divine verses. You are reciting the Qur'an, contemplating over it. Suddenly, a rousing sensation such as an illness, you have nausea, for instance, such as an illness, an appetite, or the need to pass water, like these natural states of being human, triggers your senses. Of course, your imagination will see whatever is required to remedy the affliction or answer the need. This is a necessity, and this is something good. We have a need, and our imagination shows us the way. You are so hungry, and you are having these, hunger pains. There are these pangs in your stomach, and it's preventing you from being able to concentrate on what you are reciting. So your imagination starts to imagine the refrigerator and say, the bread and cheese in the refrigerator. And you go to the refrigerator, pull out the bread and cheese, eat it, and now you are satiated. You go back to your contemplation and recitation or prayer or whatever it is that's good that you were doing, right? So this is a good thing. Your imagination helps you recognize what you need to do next in order to fulfill your needs. Of course, your imagination will see whatever is required to remedy the affliction or answer the need. It will look and weave the lowly images that suit them. And the meanings that come, but there are also these pure, beautiful, sublime meanings that are coming to the heart. You are contemplating the Quran after all. But the meanings that come will pass between those images. So just calm down. There is no trouble, nor pollution, nor harm, nor danger for what passes through. So those meanings will pass through there. There is contact but no contamination, right? Will pass through there and come on the other end as pure, right? What do we mean by pure? That their sanctity is preserved. It is acceptable before God. I mean, if they are pure and other intentions and so on and so forth are not mixed in, right? We are not saying God will accept them. That's a different question, but it is acceptable before God. It is acceptable for you to go before God, right? You can go before God with them. The meanings that come will pass between them. There is no trouble, nor pollution, nor harm, nor danger for what passes through. The only danger is in paying attention and presuming harm, right? The harm is in presuming harm. If you don't pay attention, if you don't presume harm, if you just let them be, it's an aspect of your natural existence in this world. If you just let them be, it will be fine. You will be fine, right? So recognize the quiddity of this situation. The meaning is pure. The images may be dirty and vile and so on and so forth, but the meaning will get through there. There's contact. There is no contamination. Third aspect. Budur ki, eşya mabeyinlerinde bazı münasebatı hafiye bulunur. Hatta hiç ümit etmediğin şeyler içinde münasebet ipleri bulunur. Ya bizzat bulunur veya senin hayalin meşgul olduğu sanata göre o ipleri yapmış. Onları birbiriyle bağlamış. Şu sırrı münasebettendir ki bazen bir mukaddes şeyi görmek bir mülevves şeyi hatıra getirir. Fenni beyanda beyan olduğu gibi hariçte uzaklık sebebi olan zıddiyet ise hayalde sebebi kurbiyettir. Yani iki zıddın suretlerinin cem'ine vasıta bir münasebeti hayaliyedir. Bu münasebetle gelen tahattura tedai efkar tabir edilir. Mesela sen namazda, münacatta, Kabe karşısında, huzur-u ilahideyken ayat-ı tefekkürde olduğun bir halde şu tedai efkar seni tutup en uzak malayaniyatı rezileye sevk eder. It is this, that is the third aspect, is this, that there are some hidden relations between things. Threads of relations exist even among completely unexpected things. It either exists in and of itself, or your imagination has made those threads in accordance with the art with which it is preoccupied, and it has tied them together. It is due to the secret of this relationship that sometimes seeing a sacred thing calls to mind a dirty thing. As it is explained in the science of eloquence, the opposition that is a cause for distance in the external world is a cause for closeness in the imagination. That is, the means for bringing together the forms of two opposites is an imaginary relationship. The thoughts that come through this relationship are called association of ideas. For instance, while you are engaged in a colloquy or performing a prayer in divine presence in front of the Kaaba, this association of ideas takes hold of and drives you to the furthest meaningless, vile things. So again, we want to understand the quiddity of obsessive thoughts. And obsessive thoughts are thoughts or meanings that come to the heart and then go into imagination, right? And now we want to understand how imagination works. To some extent, the intellect may also come into the picture here. It is this, that there are some hidden relations between things. So there are hidden connections, relations between things out there in the world, between the tree and the moon, the ant and the fish, the sea and the sun, and so on and so forth. Threads of relations exist even among completely unexpected things, right? So the ant and the meteorite somewhere out there in the space, asteroid somewhere in the space. Now, these relations either exist in and of themselves, right? So there's a relationship between the tree and the sun, for instance. The tree receives light from the sun and photosynthesizes that and turns into cells and so on and so forth. There is this relationship. It is hidden. We don't see it directly, but it exists. We can observe it in other ways than just looking. It either exists, that relationship either exists in and of itself, or the alternative to this is your imagination has made those threads in accordance with the art with which it is preoccupied and tied them together. So alternatively, our imagination makes these connections. For an urbanite, a city-dwelling person who has never been involved in agriculture and so on and so forth, cultivation, right? You can take this person out in the plains, and he can look and enjoy himself, and perhaps see some flowers, pick up some flowers, and look at the sky. Overall enjoyment, very, very good, fine. He will or she will associate what he sees or she sees with perhaps with beauty, perhaps with cleanliness, perhaps with expanse, whatever. Then take a farmer to the same plains, empty plains. The farmer will now start to see plots, fields. Here we will have corn, there we will have the beans, there we are going to have a vegetable garden. Over there it's a nice spot for planting some fruit trees and having an orchard. So the art that this farmer is preoccupied, his mind, his imagination is preoccupied, right? Sees fields and plots and vegetables and so on and so forth, right? So is there a relationship between orchard and the plains? There may be, right? But it's not obvious for everybody to see. It is, right now, this association is made in the imagination of the farmer. It is due to the secret of this relationship. So the relationship between things that is either extant, that either exists in the external world, outside the mind, extramental world, or the imagination weaves those connections and they exist in the imagination. It is due to the secret of this relationship that sometimes seeing a sacred thing calls to mind a dirty thing. Sometimes seeing a sacred thing calls to mind a dirty thing. As it's explained in the science of eloquence, the opposition that is a cause for distance in the external world is a cause for closeness in the imagination. So if you play this game as like I say something and you tell me the first word that comes to your mind. If I say hot, you say cold. If I say white, you say black, right? If I say high, you say low, so on and so forth. That is, the means for bringing together the forms of two opposites is an imaginary relationship. So what is the relationship between hot and cold? Right? They are opposites. They are distant, as distant can be. What's the relation between east and west? Right? They are the furthest points from one another around the earth. But in the imagination, they are close. They are tied together. There are these ready-made connections in the imagination that work automatically. The thoughts that come through this relationship are called association of ideas, tedai efkar in Turkish. Association of ideas. So there is an association between these ideas. For instance, while you are engaged in a colloquy or performing a prayer in divine presence in front of the Kaaba, so like how much better can it get, right? Like in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, maybe, right? But you're in front of the Kaaba, your spirit is elevated, your heart is filled with nice, beautiful thoughts. You are supplicating to your Lord. You are talking with God. this association of ideas takes hold of and drives you to the furthest meaningless, vile things. It is possible. They are not coming to your mind because you associate closeness between those wild things and the sacred things that you are experiencing and seeing and thinking about there, right? No, it is because they are so far. It is the farness that becomes the means of association in your mind. Senin başın böyle bir tedai efkara müptela ise sakın telaş etme. Belki intibaha geldiğin anda dön, aman ne kusur ettim deyip tetkikle meşgul olup durma, ta o zayıf münasebet senin dikkatinle kuvvet peyda etmesin. Zira teessür gösterdikçe, ehemmiyet verdikçe senin o zayıf tahattürün melekeye döner, bir marazı hayali olur. Korkma, marazı kalbi değil. Şu nevi tahattür ise galiben ihtiyarsızdır, hususan hassas asabilerde daha galiptir. Şeytan şu nevi vesvesenin madenini çok işlettirir. If your head is afflicted with such an association of ideas, beware, do not panic. Right, this is rule number 1, to-do list, like, do not panic. Instead, return to the moment when you became aware of this situation. Do not keep occupying yourself with the analysis of the matter, saying, oh mine, what did I do wrong? So that weak relationship does not gain power as a result of your attention. For as you show distress and pay attention, your thoughts turn into a permanent faculty and become a disease of the imagination. Do not be afraid. This is not a disease of the heart. Such thoughts are predominantly without volition. It is more dominant, especially in sensitive and nervous people. Let's try to understand a bit better. If your head is afflicted with such an association of ideas, right, you are in the presence of God, in the most sacred thing you can imagine, and because of its farness from this, because of its opposition to this, something comes to your mind. So when that happens, be careful, right? The first thing is do not panic. Instead, return to the moment when you became aware of this situation, i.e. turn away from it. Turn away from it. The same idea. Do not pick up the phone. Do not pay attention to it. Do not busy yourself with it. Do not try to analyze it. Do not try to destroy it. Even do not try to destroy it. Do not occupy yourself with it. Turn away from it. Turn to the moment when it came to you. So turn to where you did not have it yet. Do not keep occupying yourself with the analysis of the matter, saying, oh mine, what did I do wrong? If you do that, you are in trouble, right? So to not be in trouble, for that weak relationship not to gain power as a result of your attention, right? Don't analyze it. Don't say, oh mine, what did I do? You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do this. It is happening to you. It is happening in your imagination. But you didn't do this intentionally. Now, there are things that you can do in order to reduce the frequency of things happening like this. And that is about keeping your imagination and heart clean and so on and so forth, right? But as we said, because we are human, these associations evolve and sometimes settle in our imagination, right? So you didn't do it. It is happening in your mind. It is happening to you. If you pay attention to it, if you try to even destroy it, it will become stronger. For as you show distress and pay attention, your thoughts turn into a permanent faculty and become a disease of the imagination. So there is this danger that it may become a disease of the imagination. I tell you hot, you think cold. I tell you, do not think cold when I say hot. And then you start, each time I say hot, you say, okay, I'm not going to think about cold now. I'm not going to think about cold now. What happened? You are thinking about cold. And the more you do this, the more this will become established in your mind. It will become a pattern. It will become a habit. It will turn into a habit. It will become a faculty. It will become a permanent habit of your faculty of imagination. So when I say hot, think about hot springs. Think about a beautiful summer day. Think about the fire on the stove on which you are boiling your water for your tea. Right? Don't try to not think cold, but do something positive. Cultivate what is positive. Right? As you show distress and pay attention, your thoughts turn into a permanent faculty and become a disease of the imagination. So if it is at this point, if it became a disease of the imagination, you are still fine. If you harp on this, if you try to destroy this in the imagination, you will still be occupying yourself with it, right? And then it may God protect, it may start to hurt your heart too. But at this point, it is a disease of the imagination. Do not be afraid. This is not a disease of the heart. Such thoughts are predominantly without volition. It is more dominant, especially in sensitive and nervous people. So this might be a character issue. This might be a temperament issue, right? What's the solution? What's the solution? Do not pay attention. Şu yaranın merhemi şudur ki, tedai efkar galiben ihtiyarsızdır. Onda mesuliyet yoktur. Hem tedaide mücaveret var. Temas ve ihtilat yoktur. Onun için efkarın keyfiyetleri birbirine sirayet etmez, birbirine zarar vermez. Nasıl ki şeytan ile melek-i ilham kalp taraflarında mücaveretleri var ve füccar ve ebrarın karabetleri ve bir meskende durmaları zarar vermez, öyle de tedai efkar saikasıyla istemediğin pis hayalat gelip nezih efkarın içine girse zarar vermez. Meğer kasten olsa veya zarar zannıyla onunla ziyade meşgul olsa. Hem bazen kalp yoruluyor. Fikir kendini eğlendirmek için rastgele bir şeyle meşgul olur. Şeytan fırsat bulur, pis şeyleri önüne serpiyor, sürüyor. The salve for this wound is the following. So the solution for this wound is the following. We said don't pay attention, but we need to understand how it works so that we can figure out how not to pay attention, how to divert our attention elsewhere. As with all these aspects, we want to recognize, we want to understand the quiddity of this whole thing. The salve for this wound is the following. The association of ideas are predominantly not volitional. There is no accountability in this. So it's not, as we said, you are not doing it, right? It's happening to you, it's happening in your mind. You are not doing it intentionally. There is no accountability in this. Al-a'malu bin-niyat. Actions are according to intentions. You don't have the intention, you don't have the responsibility. Moreover, in association, there is neighborhood. In association, there is neighborhood, not contact or blending. Therefore, the qualities of ideas do not pass on to one another. As Satan and the angel of inspiration are neighbors around the heart, and as the proximity of open sinners and the devout, or their being in the same location, does not cause harm. Likewise, if dirty imaginations that you do not want come and enter among clean ideas at the prompting of the association of ideas, this does no harm, unless it is intentional or one occupies himself too much with them by presuming them to be harmful. Also, sometimes the heart gets tired. The mind occupies itself with a random thing in order to entertain itself. Satan finds an opportunity in this. It scatters dirty things in front of it and goads them to it. Okay. The association of ideas are predominantly not volitional. Right? You can volitionally, intentionally associate ideas in your mind. right? But here we are talking about a person who has like pure meanings in his heart, and those pure meanings, because of the farness, the distance, the opposition of some other meaning, bring to the mind, the imagination, some other meaning. So we are not talking about a person who has bad intentions, who is intentionally and volitionally trying to do vile things. We are talking about a person who is trying to do good things, but then these things happen. Satan is setting up traps on his way. So the association of ideas are predominantly not volitional, and if it is not volitional, or if it is of this type that is not volitional, there is no accountability in this. Moreover, in association there is neighborhood, not contact or blending. Now, in the previous aspect, when good meanings come to the heart and they have to go through imagination, we said there is contact, not clothing, right? Here it is even further. In association, that is tadai afkar, in the association of these ideas, there is neighborhood, not contact or blending. There is not even contact. Therefore, the qualities of ideas do not pass on to one another, right? The idea number one is a sacred idea. It's a holy idea. It is an idea that will please God. Idea number two, that's its opposite, is a vile idea that's going to anger God, right? So one has the quality of being sacred, the other has the quality of being vile, and they are in proximity, but the sacredness of one does not go on to the other, and the vileness of one does not go on to the other. Right? They do not pass on to one another. As Satan and the angel of inspiration are neighbors around the heart. We said this. There's Lumay Shaitanya, there's Lumay Malakiya. There is a fellow traveler for Satan. There is this connection, the receiver around the heart that gives Satan access to the heart. And there is this fellow traveler that is angelic. There is this angelic receiver in the heart that receives information, that receives thoughts from angels. And these are both traveling with the heart. They are both the companions of the heart, right? Both fellow travelers to the heart. So as Satan and the angel of inspiration are neighbors around the heart, they both come and they both communicate. And as the proximity of open sinners and the devout, or their being in the same location, does not cause harm. Say you're at the airport, and there is this mashallah saint of God walking in the corridor, and there is this open sinner, the vile person, also walking in the corridor. They are walking next to each other, one in front of the other. They are walking together in the same location. They are in the same location. They are sharing the same location, right? It's okay. The vileness of one does not pass on to the holiness of the other. Now, this is as long as we said, this is not volitional, right? If the holy person or the good person goes to the vile person and associates with the vile person without having the necessary protections, right? Not to go and help that person, or if he goes there and wants to help that person but does not have the means to do, he himself is not protected enough, right? So there's danger in that. That's not what we are talking about. We are talking about two individuals randomly occupying the same space as though they're in a bus station or an airport, or they walk into the same store to do grocery shopping, right? That's what we are talking about. Likewise, like this, if dirty imaginations that you do not want come and enter among clean ideas at the prompting of the association of ideas, because of these associations, these threads that exist between things, this does no harm. Now, there's a caveat here. It does no harm, but if it is intentional, right? If you are intentionally weaving those threads, that's a different question, right? Or, now that's a different question, and that's clear. I mean, everybody will recognize that, right? But the more subtle and perhaps even more dangerous one is, or if one occupies himself too much with them by presuming them to be harmful. Remember, the harm is in the presumption of harm. If you presume it to be harmful and start to occupy yourself with it, dig into it, then now you are bringing harm on yourself. Also, sometimes the heart gets tired. The mind occupies itself, or the ideas occupy themselves with a random thing in order to entertain itself. Right? Random things come to the mind, the ideas. The heart gets tired, heart loses control a little bit. Right? You may want to be doing salawat all day. You may want to be remembering God all day. But sometimes the heart gets tired, especially if it doesn't have, it's not in good condition. The way we condition our muscles, and an athlete who is used to exercising 4 hours every day may not get tired after running 1 hour, and a couch potato or somebody who is not used to exercising may start panting after 5 minutes of running. Right? So especially if the heart is not conditioned well, it gets tired. Now, all hearts get tired, right? All hearts get tired. All hearts of the ordinary people like myself get tired, and this happens. So when this happens, the mind occupies itself with a random thing, again, not volitional, random, in order to entertain itself. Now, when that happens, Satan finds an opportunity in this. It scatters dirty things in front of it and goads them to it. So it starts to go dirty ideas toward the mind, toward the ideas. But again, recognize this is a random thought that's happening to you. You are not doing it intentionally. If you are not doing it intentionally, you are not accountable. The one thing that you may do intentionally without the intention of doing something vile, right? One thing you may do intentionally while you think that you are doing something good is occupying yourself with it. And if you occupy yourself with it, you'll be paying attention to it, and this will open a doorway for Satan to put his foot in, and then put his leg in, and then enter and get you. So once again, the umbrella solution is do not pay attention. Do not pick up the phone. Okay, I guess we are going to stop here and continue with the fourth aspect in the next episode. May God protect us from these obsessive thoughts, and may we have the intelligence and tactfulness, skill to recognize and avert them without Satan gets to us. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.